I don't want to be there. I mean, I don't want to bring you down further, but
don't.
it's much better than what, in fact, the Ukrainians did for us. Because they, in fact, actively participated in killing objects. So,
Okay.
you know,
But
you know,
new generations and
that's true.
Let's see. Lizanne, could you be the audience? No, you don't want to be the audience.
my voice isn't strong enough.
Your voice is not good enough. Okay.
I mean, I could start it, but then I'd be coughing and then my voice would
Oh,
go.
don't do that. Don't do that.
Good. Well, John, do you need to turn on the?
What? Turn on the speakers. You're plugged in?
Well,
Pat.
Shabbat Shalom. Time for socializing.
Sure. Just put her in.
See, the synagogue has many functions. One of them is a house of assembly.
I don't know if it's only me. I don't listen to the rabbi.
Do you hear the music?
No.
I go, now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Maybe not good. Thank you. I don't know what was wrong. I'll figure out what's wrong. Judas not come back to you. Anyway, so Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you all. Like to know what you. Anybody has anything to share? Anything good has happened in your life? Anything good is gonna happen in your life? Any? Yes, ma'am.
All three of my grandchildren were in Kansas City as recently as a week ago. I'm sure the moment visit. And once I got better enough, I got to spend some time.
And then they went home and the oldest one swallowed a penny.
That's the wrong kind of investing.
Yes, we're talking about
The ER people started calling him piggy man.
Just imagine. Wow. Anybody has anything to make somebody else's life better this past week, besides teaching them about investment?
I didn't do it, but Sean Penn was on, I think it was the Late Show the other day, and reported on Ukraine. And his basically take on this, he's involved in a big multinational charity work of taking care of refugees. And it will make the world much better if everybody listens to that. Look up Sean Penn and the Late Show. He gave a beautiful presentation. He was with Zelensky the day before and the day after war broke out.
Wow.
And is helping with the refugees.
Wow. So an interesting note, I think, and maybe countering what I just told was that I was listening to one of those Jewish podcasts that I listened to. There was a commercial for Heinz, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and then the thing is, we'll give we'll help the people of Ukraine not because they are Jewish, because we are.
Right.
I thought that was very touching. So that's great. And that's it. No, I mean, I did something quite nice for somebody, but I'm not sure I should. I have one of my very, very, very good friends in Brazil. God bless him. He's so dumb, and he made a really, really got part of us some scam. So I figure out. Well, it's very complicated because basically his salary is, he agreed to pay his salary to one bank to borrow money to invest in another bank. The second bank closed. So now he basically has to work, get a salary, but not bring anything home. So I took everything I had in my bank account in Brazil and forwarded it to him. Should help him for a while. Then the next job, he said, oh, I wrote this. Don't worry. Whatever makes you feel better. Yeah, complicated. People, it's one Jew who's not good with money. Not understand it. That was basically a pyramid scheme. Very fascinating. Anyway, on this happy note,
Tape to put that thing next to his face. We need a piece of tape to tape it to the side of your cheek.
I will. Okay, maybe like this now.
Well, we
No?
need tape. I don't have a tape, that's all.
Okay. Wow.
Band-Aid. Yeah, Band-Aid, it worked.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll try. This being the second Shabbat of the month, we will start on the first. What's our opening song, Theo?
We very often have had the Shabbos candles.
No, after opening song. Mr. Doctor, you can do that.
I can fix it.
Yes. See, depois you get you get medical treatment like on the fly. With better opinion for Jews. Okay, good. This better? Can you hear me now?
You got a Band-Aid.
If you stay here, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, what are we opening with, Theo? Page 4, Havana Shir, the bottom. Now we come to page 7 for the killing of Sabbath lights. And let's see if I have a volunteer. Joyce, thank you for volunteering. Can always count on Joyce for all kinds of things.
What he has to do is say the word volunteer and Joyce shows up.
You're having a microphone here.
Come, let us welcome Shabbat. May its radiance warm our hearts as we kindle these tapers.
Light is the symbol of God's presence in our lives. The eternal one is our light and our salvation.
Light is the symbol of holiness within each of us. The human spirit is the light of God. Light is the symbol of the Torah's teachings. And the Torah is the light. Light is the symbol of Israel's mission, as in written back in Egypt, a covenant people to serve, as a light to the nations. Therefore, the spirit of our ancient tradition, we kindle the lights of Shabbat. We praise our eternal God, creator of the universe, who holds our lives and loves and every teachings. We are mindful of these timeless values as we kindle the light of Shabbat. May God bless us with Shabbat joy. May God bless us with Shabbat holiness. May God bless us with Shabbat peace. Amen.
This being the 8th, thus the second Shabbat of the month. In fact, today is a special Shabbat. There are, there's some Shabbatot are special as they happen right before big events, and two really big ones. Shabbat HaGadol, which is this one, which is Sabbath right before Passover, and Shabbat Teshuvah, Sabbath between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And in the good old days, the ancient days, when rabbis didn't have to speak every Friday, they would take their revenge on these two Shabbatot by going in front of the congregation, and ultimately what was important about each one of them, and pulling a Fidel Castro, speaking like for 14 hours or something. Get all the sermons of the whole year. That would be a good day for you to be sick at home. But basically, that was the Shabbat when the rabbi would take to explain to people either a new thought or just a practical thing how to observe Passover, either from a practical sense or from a spiritual sense, new thinking. That's this Shabbat. And the Shabbat before the Rosh Hashanah, the Shabbat Teshuvah, to teach people what does it mean to really repent. But having said that, we will continue on page 34. On this day, holy people of Israel have gathered with our brothers and sisters in worship. We have come here in gratitude for the strength God has given us to do our work in the past week, for the fortitude to meet challenges and temptations. May this hour of devotion awaken within us the awareness of God's presence and bring peace to our spirits.
Let us set aside our desires and fears, our worry and complaining, and our souls to sustain the faith. Let us walk in the ways of the Torah, in order that we may be instruments of God's will. The days of labor, the Sabbaths of rest, our daily tasks of worship. May we express our devotion to the eternal. Let the beauty of holiness shine into our hearts, so that we may grow more steadfast in our faith, in our love of God, and our respect for all humanity.
Please rise for the Barakud invitation to prayer on page 36. Baruchu et Adonai Torah, praise eternal God with all praises due. Baruch Adonai Torah.
Let us praise eternal God, to all praises due.
Page 37. Ever living God, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify of your power and wisdom. Day follows day in endless succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures. Though all things pass, your glory will never depart from us. Help us to be your partners that remain our fleeting day with abiding in you.
All goodness and truth come from you, O God. You know the transgressions of strangers from you, nor self-centeredness darken our visions of your purposes. Help us to recognize that which is just and fully understand. In adversity and in prosperity, may the light of Torah illuminate our path. May we labor in your service so that our deeds become living in praise to you.
Continue on page 38.
Infinite is your power, even so is your love. It may be seen in the spirit of wisdom, through laws and ethical precepts, through statutes and ordinances. You have led us in the ways of righteousness and brought us to the light of truth. Therefore, our light down on our Christ God, who meditate on the Torah's teachings, finding divinity, inspiration, and guidance of our daily lives. May the love never depart from our hearts. We praise you, God, you have revealed your love for Israel.
Together on page 39, we affirm Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the eternal is our God, the eternal is one. Baruch Shem Kadol Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Let us praise God, who rules and declares forever.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kadol Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
May be seated. We continue with the after on page 40. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי ציווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך בדברך בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרת לאור על ידיך והיו בתותפות עיניך, ופסקתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Love eternal God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be upon your heart, shall be upon your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and when you rise up. You shall bind the foresight on your hand, and they shall be a symbol before your eyes. And you shall write them on the doors of your house, and upon your gates, and upon your gates. That you may remember, and you will remember, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Okay, pray responsibly on page 42. In truth, the eternal one alone is our Redeemer.
God is our redeemer, the deliverer of us.
Let us praise the eternal God, who gives rest to the weary and hope to the despondent.
Let us acknowledge God as our creator and hold fast to the Torah.
Blessed Shabbat, the Queen of Days, which offers to our people enrichment for the soul.
Even more than Israel has kept the Sabbath, so the Sabbath has kept our people Israel.
How blessed are those who observe Shabbat, sanctified with prayer, with study, and with friendship.
Let us rejoice in our eternal God and delight in our heritage.
May our homes be filled with love and gladness, may our hearts be steadfast, trusting the eternal one.
The love of God is our strength.
Page 44. As the Sabbath descends, it unfolds us in its mantle of peace. It brings to us the precious gift of time, to embrace family and friends, to reflect more deeply on the meaning and purpose of our lives, and to worship in the beauty of holiness. May every Shabbat be for us a sanctuary of love and devotion, bring contentment to our hearts, happiness to our homes, and blessings to our people.
Those who celebrate God and call him delight, rejoice in your creation. All who count the seventh day shall be glad in us. This day is Israel's festival of Spirit, sanctified and blessed by you, the most precious of days, symbol of joy of creation.
Now we rise on page 45 for them.
Open my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Otenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Hayah Elohim Elohim, Elohim, Noel Chasadim Troim, Elohei Hakol, Elohei Chaskerot Emamot, Elohei Elohim Elohim, Lemach Shura Ve'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magei, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magi Avraham, Bezrat Sarah.
We praise the God of our mothers and fathers, God of Abraham, God of Sarah, God of all generations. We bestow loving kindness on all your people. We remember the devotion of those who came for us. As you guided our ancestors with love, you offer hope to us, their descendants. Your creator, helper, our God and protector. We praise you, eternal God, shield of Abraham, and help of Sarah. Repeating responsibly on page 46. God of ages past and future, God of this day, as well with our mothers and fathers, be with us as well.
As you strengthen them, they will strengthen us. As you grow their power, be ours as well.
Grant that we too may be bearers of your teaching, teachers of your truth.
Then our tradition shall endure, and our people Israel will live from mother and father to daughter and son, and all who follow them.
One generation comes, one generation passes. Each one of us is a link in the endless chain of our heritage.
Students of the Torah become teachers. Our faith and our ideals is the door. Our people and our nations is home.
Matagi Leolam Adonai, Mechayim Akulata, Rav Hoshia, Mechakel Chaim Be'esed, Mechayim Hakom Be'rachamim, Somek Noflim Be'rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umechayim Be'emunato, Mishenei Apar. Miframo Kabbalah, Umitomela, Melekei Udalei, Umatzmiat Yeshua, Ve'alata Chayotato, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ve'ayei Hakol.
Infinite is your power, O God. Great is your gift of life. In loving kindness to sustain the world. Through the endless flow of your blessings, you preserve all of creation. You uphold the fallen and heal the sick, breathing back and living faith for people in death and life. Who is like the author of life and death. We praise you, God, the source of eternal life.
Page 14. God calls our people Israel to be of service. And we fulfill this charge by exemplifying the Torah's idea of all those we encounter in our daily lives.
May we have the grace to fulfill our mission with enthusiasm and joy. Always tempered by wisdom and guided by respect for other people's faith and securities. May our actions assist to strengthen our relations.
May our conduct toward our neighbors, our faithfulness in every sphere of duty, our compassion for those in need, and our patience under trial show that the one whose law we obey is indeed the God of all, the loving creator of all people. It teaches us that to serve God is perfect freedom, and to worship God is soul's purest delight.
May our eyes and minds always be open, so that we may see and welcome all truth. Whether shining in the wisdom and teachings, or reaching us through the prophets of our own time. For God continues to shed light on every generation that seeks the guidance of eternal.
The people of Israel shall preserve the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath in every generation of perpetual covenant, which is a sign between God and the people of Israel forever. And he may be saved.
Shabbat.
Page 49. Grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace, and that we may rise up again to life. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with wise counsel. Be a shield about us, fortify us against hatred and war, against pestilence and sorrow. Curb within us the inclination to do evil, and unfold us within the embrace of your love. Guide our going out and coming into life and peace from this time forth and forever. We praise you, God, for you shelter us and all who dwell on earth. Now, page 50. Our God and God of our mothers and fathers, grant that our worship on this Shabbat may be acceptable to you. Sanctify us through your precepts, that we may share the blessings of the Torah. Help us to be satisfied with the gift of your goodness and grateful for all that you bestow. Purify our hearts that we may serve in truth. May we preserve Shabbat as our people's heritage from generation to generation, to ever bring rest and joy, peace and comfort to our lives. We praise eternal God who sanctifies Shabbat. Next page, 51.
We gratefully acknowledge that the eternal God is our creator and preserver, the rock of our life, the shield of our head. We thank God and cease praises for the gift of life itself, for our souls that are ever in God's keeping, for the signs of our Creator's presence that we encounter every day, and for God's promise gives us at all times, morning, noon, and night. Truly, our blessings are without end, and God's loving kindness never ceases. Therefore, we forever put our trust in the eternal.
God of peace, let all people strive together, creating doing peace. Bless us with the vision of your peace. We praise the eternal God who bless our people Israel and all people with the law of peace. Prior to silent prayer, as we normally do, we shall turn to page 10, the prayer of those in need of healing. Prayer invites God's presence to lift our spirits. It allows the blessing, gift of hope to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to poured field, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water and enrich soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. Shabbat, we pray for the following friends, relatives of members of our congregation and members: Nancy Stern, Gary Keshner, Marvin Aaron, Mike Herman, Wayne Owen, Martha Katz, Pat McKenna, Louise Diana Bergson, Felicia Wax, Ray Barker, Hawk Tomei, Willie Montgomery, Dr. Jeffrey Lazar. Then I have here on behalf of Pat, Mike Becker, Andy Becker, Brian Becker, Mary Lou Becker, Bailey Swales, and Alvin Ham. Anybody else?
Robin's nice.
For my friend Francis Farrell, Connie Thomas, Jennifer Bell, and
Al Noble, Patty Shapiro.
Gotcha, Gary.
Maria Morrow, Izzy Michael. Lynn Christie, Donna Vestal, Roy Wenzel, David Turner, Lenore May. These are people with Ukraine.
Yes.
Anybody else?
And those that injured in the attack on Israel.
We pray.
all people who have been our sickness and want and distress of body and spirit. We name in our hearts those who are near to us and in whose name we feel pain. Let them know the real feeling presence, realizing that they are not alone.
May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing, with their full arms shed out. Renew our body, renew our spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Pause now for a moment of silent prayer, using the words our hearts may prompt us, for those to be found on page 53. Such great medical treatment, I can get a band-aid in it.
I gotta really take that.
Shop for duct tape.
We are well acquainted with certain judges, what they call them rogue judges, who disagree with the law, the constitution. They judge it any way they want. They make any ruling they want. And that, again, get them in trouble potentially. But, you know, they feel they can do whatever they do. What do you do when you essentially find something in the law that is tremendously distasteful, or you really can't live with, and yet you need to give the semblance that you care about the law. What do? You do what they need to do to make sure Judaism survives. That's why we are here. The rabbis have clearly been able to figure that one out. The rabbis, when they find something that doesn't work for any reason, I'll give you a few examples, they just legislate it out of usage. They just interpret it in a way, I'll give you an example not related to it. We start the Shabbat service by lighting Shabbat candles. And yet, the only thing that the Bible says about light on the Sabbath is, anybody knows? That there should be no light in your home in the Sabbath. And yet, the rabbis figuring out that if you don't have light, this is before electricity, right? You would be in the dark, and the day that should be a day of fun become a crappy day. What did they say? Well, you can light it beforehand and leave it on so that way you can enjoy the light. They work around it. And in fact, the rabbis have so much chutzpah that they create for us a blessing that Joy so skillfully recited and say, praise are you, eternal God, ruler of the universe, who sanctified us with commandments, so far so good, and commanded us to light Sabbath lights when you are specifically commanded not to have light. The rabbis are geniuses. You see, it's perfect. And there are many areas in Jewish life that the rabbis do that. And I would argue that that's why Judaism has survived. That's why Judaism is different. So, and there's a great deal of chutzpah. So when something happens in the Torah that trouble the rabbis or go against their ethical sensitivities, they will totally reinterpret that law. And often, the reinterpretation will make the law inoperable. So, the rabbis, I'm sorry, I forgot that's important. And from where do the rabbis think they have the right to reinterpret the law after all the law comes from God? But somewhere else in the Torah it says, you shall follow this law, and you shall follow the judgment of those that I will appoint to you later. Me, not the rabbi. That's why Denise is such an unfaithful Jew. Because when I set rules in my house, nobody listens. She ignores that part of the Torah. But anyway, look at her looking, smiling guiltily. So the rabbis were saying that the law might appear in the Torah in this way, but should never be applied in real life. One fascinating passage of the Talmud in Sanhedrin 71a, they reinterpret 3 laws, including one in this Torah portion that made me think of it. The first law the rabbis interpret out of existence is the one about a ben sorero more, a stubborn and rebellious son. And that is I will check Deuteronomy 21:18 to 21. If a son does not obey the voices, it says, if a son does not obey the voice of his mother and father, and if he is a glutton and a drunkard, his parents bring him to the gates of the city, and by the way, the law only applies to a son who is in his early teen years. There, the elders will question the parents, and if they find him to be a stubborn and rebellious son, he was stoned to death. We know that in our days the problem with rebellious son is he is strong. Doesn't need to be. But this law obviously was barbaric. Although anyone who has ever raised a teenager, a boy, can understand its purpose. I only praise Dalia, which is a whole story. The rabbis, deeply disturbed by this law, looked carefully at the wording of the Torah, and they noted that the word voice of the mother and father was in the singular. They say he doesn't use the voices of the mother and father, doesn't use the voice of the mother and father. So the rabbi said this means that the father and the mother had to speak in exactly the same voice. The law was only applied if one could not differentiate between the voice of the father and the voice of the mother. Clearly an impossible situation. So we get this solution. The rabbis concluded there never was and never will be a stubborn and rebellious son, because mother and father don't speak the same voice. The law is in the Torah, so we can study and receive a reward for study, because that's its own reward. Of course, one rabbi disagreed and said there was such a son, and he sat by his grave. There's always one. The second law, the rabbis interpret out of existence, is the law of an ir nedacha, a city gone astray. And that's Deuteronomy 13, verses 13 to 19. If an entire city forsakes the covenant and begins worshiping idols, the city and all the inhabitants must be destroyed. The rabbis were also deeply disturbed by this law. They noted that it's forbidden to destroy a mezuzah, or a scroll, the door of your house that has God's name in it. Destroying everything in a city means destroying any mezuzah in that city as well. And since the rabbis could not imagine a city without a single mezuzah, they thought that such a city gone astray never was and never will be. The law is in the Torah, so shall study and receive a reward for studying, but that's it. Again, one rabbi disagreed and said there was such a city, and he sat on the mountain where it was destroyed. That rabbi obviously was an ancestor of John, to be against everybody. The third law, do you hear that? Better. The third law comes from this week's portion, regarded about a home that is afflicted, blighted, with metzorah. The name of the Torah portion. Metzorah is a skin disease that is normally translated wrongly as leprosy. It's probably a fungus. That's why I bought my fungus to make me think of it. It was probably a fungus of some sort which break out of the skin, on the clothing, and in our portion on the walls of a home. I happen to have one home that has mold going on the walls. It's amazing. A priest would check the home a few times, and if the plague had spread, the home was totally knocked out. It was as if someone with mold damage in their home was forced to raise their home to the ground. And seriously, that's what got me thinking about it, doing the mold test in my own home. Again, this law disturbed the ethical sensitivities of the rabbis. They looked closely at the Hebrew and noted in one point the word wall is in the singular. In another point, the word wall is walls in the plural. They search the text, but they find that. Where can you find a wall that is also walls, plural? They rule that this would only happen in two adjoining walls if the mold, this white mold, was symmetrically on both walls. To be exactly symmetrical at the corner. This was nearly impossible. Again, the rabbis ruled such a blighted home never was and never will be. The law is in the Torah so that we will study and receive a reward for studying. And again, one rabbi said there was such a home and he visited the ruins. I bring these three examples for you to demonstrate a very powerful, very relevant religious principle. Our religious teachings must be consistent with our ethical sensitivities. If they are not, it's time to reinterpret our religious teachings. This was the great chutzpah that the rabbis in the Talmud had. It was also what made Judaism possible. This is the responsibility of anyone who takes their religious heritage seriously. Shabbat shalom. Just amplify by saying, many times people come here and they say, oh, I don't believe in God. And then I say, okay, but tell me what God don't you believe in? The one that created the world. Oh, but I don't believe in that one either. It's okay. That's it. Problems, comments? No? Nobody? Then happy note, then we'll turn our preface to page 368. Revise for the 360. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא שם חלקים ליחד את שמו, וגורל להימולא מלכותו.
Let us adore God. We offer praise unto you, spread out the heavens and established earth. Your glory is revealed in the heavens above, Greatest is in us. Our God, there is none else.
We bow our heads in reverence before the eternal one, source of all life.
Come not be distant, O God, when you show your worship throughout the earth. When unbelief shall disappear, and error be no more. Fervently we pray that the day may come when all people shall be guided by your teachings. Corruption and evil shall give way to purity and goodness. Superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor malice draw line beyond. That all who dwell where shall know that to you alone every knee shall bend and every voice will praise. May we all created in your image recognize that we are brothers and sisters, so that one in spirit and one in heart, we may be forever united before you. Then shall your reign be established on earth, and the word of your ancient power be fulfilled. Eternal God will reign forever.
On that day, the eternal shall be one, and God's name shall be. Nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision, grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's plan. Yet we know that both growth and decay, life and death, all reveal God's purpose. God is our support in the struggles of life. It's also our help in death. We have set the eternal one before us, we shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living, under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are confident. The life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts, and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. Our thoughts now, and to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, our friends and neighbors, the 6 million who perished in the Shoah, those of every race, nation, and faith, whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. With Shabbat, we are observing the yeshivas, in Saturday morning period we're observing. I'm still not observing a shiva for her because she hasn't been buried yet, but Karen Wickerman, a friend of ours, but who traveled with us once to Guatemala with a bunch of other people. Anybody has certainly remember all the victims of aggression and terror both in Israel and in Eastern Europe. Anybody is observing a Shloshim and 30-day mourning period? So there are some 30 days. Former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. And as far as your sites go, Temple Israel remembers Esther Lefkowitz, Donna M. Flack, Gertrude Golden, Elion Louis Katz. Esther Lefkowitz is a relative of Nancy Stern. Donna Flack, I'm sorry, I don't know who she's related to. And Gertrude Golden is I think it's J.J. Bergson's mom, and Elliot Lewis Katz is Martha Katz's father. Anybody else has the website? The departed who now remember have entered the peace of life eternal. They still live on earth in the acts of goodness they perform, in the hearts of those who cherish their memory. In the beauty of their lives, abide among them, love and benediction. Now, as a community of mourners, we come to page 375. We join in the ancient words of the Itvarar Vishnu May the source of peace and peace to all more and comfort all who are bereaved among us and let us say. May be seated. I know we have a donation in memory of Mr. Kent's body, Mark and Theo. I want to thank Theo for the music. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the president for his class. Come here, the Jews talking about money that all the Jews think about. So
The Benjamins.
Good. So what's going on in this joint? Much is going on in this joint. On the 15th, no, the 14th, we're going to see the play at the theater. I have tickets for 7 people, those who told me they want. Myself, Denise, Joyce, our 2 friends, John and Anita. Anybody else wants to go? The tickets are $18, but if you use the code MCHE, get 50% off. I think
I got the 2 tickets for
2 more
sister.
for Anita's sister. And Joyce had some idea to go have dinner beforehand somewhere far away, a brewery far away.
No, that's the night before when we go to do, repackage the diapers at Happy Bottoms.
Oh,
I still need volunteers for that.
that was a.
That's from 6 to 7:30. It's a lot of fun. And then across the street is this place called the Brewery, and I'm buying food and beverage for anybody that wants to come and volunteer for an hour and a half.
Okay. And then I don't know when we're gonna come here to set up for the Seder.
We also have a board meeting Tuesday night.
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday, change to
What's
Tuesday. I
Tuesday?
said it a couple times.
One of these days, we have a board meeting. And then on Friday, we'll have Seder. Everybody don't mind and hasn't signed up. I think, has Gary signed up? Very
Yes,
nice.
Gary.
Good, he's a good person. Good, but he cannot bring the dog.
Oh, why? Why not?
We haven't been for you.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is there.
Better yet, she's.
Oh, it's a wonderful dog. Anyway, that's what I think we have going on. Yeah, anybody has any other announcements? No, in that case, we will conclude the service with. And I just want to point out something about Theo. He gets along with more in this congregation because we have always tried to have commercials and announcements in the newsletter to we never said this about one. Did you sell any as a result of your ad in the newsletter?
Not yet,
But we have high hopes. Good. We're proud of you. Good. What page was it? Concluding our service, we have God's blessings upon us. May God bless us and keep us. God will kind on us and ever be gracious to us. May God show us tenderness and give us shalom, peace. Shalom.
But
Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Lakolachem.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Now we can engage in our traditional employees. 5.
We're going to end for everybody who's not coming to dinner.
Not Denise.